If job growth looks solid, but millions of jobs quietly disappear in revisions, the real signal is not strength. It is structural strain building underneath the surface. Our strategy focuses on mechanisms over headlines, and when we step back from the excitement around payroll prints, what we see is not just a labor story. It is a cash flow stability story that connects labor, housing, and consumer credit. Over the last several years, downward revisions to reported job growth have accumulated into a meaningful signal. That does not automatically mean recession. It does mean labor momentum is less durable than initially presented. And when labor quality weakens, households do not immediately default. They adapt. One of the most important adaptations we are now observing is rent, now pay later structures. These platforms are not simply convenience tools. They are short-duration leverage instruments that smooth income volatility by converting a single monthly obligation into installment credit. That stabilizes landlords in the near term, but it increases leverage at the household level. In our strategy phase framework, this environment aligns most closely with late phase 1, where melt-up participation can still exist, but phase 2 multiple compression pressure is gradually rising. We currently assign roughly 60% probability that phase 1 conditions persist through mid-2026, meaning markets can remain resilient even while underlying labor quality softens. We assign roughly 30% probability that phase 2 multiple compression accelerates before year-end 2026 if hiring momentum continues to deteriorate and consumer credit utilization expands further. Phase 3 breakdown risk remains conditional and would require confirmation across credit spreads, housing delinquencies, and funding markets together. That cluster is not confirmed at this time. If you find this kind of signal-based macro sequencing useful, consider subscribing. We focus on mechanisms, phase transitions, and cross-asset confirmation, so you can interpret volatility through structure rather than emotion. What we are watching next is very specific. Hiring rate trends, not just headline payroll numbers. Consumer delinquency data and rental arrears. High-yield credit spreads and regional bank funding costs. Long-term yields and term premium behavior. If long yields remain elevated while growth softens, refinancing pressure builds. That would materially increase phase 2 probability. What would invalidate this compression pathway is equally important. A sustained reacceleration in hiring quality, stabilization in revisions, and persistent tightening in credit spreads would reduce near-term downside pressure. This discussion is for educational purposes only and is not investment advice. Our strategy does not treat rent now, pay later as destiny. We treat it as adaptive leverage inside a late-cycle environment. The system can absorb adaptive leverage longer than many expect, but each additional layer reduces margin of safety. Our task is not to predict the exact turning point. It is to observe the sequence. When labor quality influences credit usage influences housing stability. Housing stability influences bank balance sheets, and funding markets ultimately determine systemic outcomes. The signal today is not crisis, it is compression. And compression is how late-cycle transitions quietly begin.